That's great. What next? Where next lies your journey? I've put so much energy into climbing the career ladder and to being enough in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized, I think, over this last film that I couldn't, there's never been a way for me to separate my desire to be enough and to fit in this business with the projects that I make. Because of course I made It Ends With Us and all these films for a very specific reason, but I also, wanted people to think I was a good director or a good actor, and I wanted my place in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
That's enmeshed with all of it, and I think I've really learned over the course of the last 2 years that it really doesn't matter, and I've been able to, luckily, and I don't, it's never 100% pure, but I've really had the great fortune of being able to see that what I thought I wanted isn't what I wanted, and that I have everything that I want. And so
one of my favorite interviews with Justin is this interview with Rainn Wilson on Soul Boom. I keep wanting to say, I keep wanting to say Soul Bloom for some reason, but Soul Boom, I got it this time. And this clip from Justin is hyper relevant to the topic today, which is all going to be about his openness and human design, in particular, his open heart or ego. We're going to be looking at how it interacted with Blake Lively's shadow within her highly defined ego. And I would recommend either before or after this video, watch the first one, because this is a two-parter. We look at Blake's first, and now we're looking at the interaction between it. And one of the most powerful things that I'm going to relate back here is conditioning is not bad. One of the things we hear all the time with human design is conditioning is bad, and our shadow is bad, and the not self is bad. We go to school through our openness. It's where we become wise. And what you're going to see today, I just want to point it out here so you're aware when we get there, is Justin said, I learned that I didn't have to prove myself. Everything I had was enough. And that is the wisdom of his open ego and going to school in life through that open ego, which is taking in others' energy, experiencing it, falling on your face sometimes, making mistakes, especially for his design, which is a 3-5 profile. It's all about making mistakes and then coming out the other side and saying, you know what, I actually learned from this experience and I don't have to prove myself anymore. So that's exactly what we're diving into today is human design and Gene Keys, looking at Blake Lively's interaction with Justin Baldoni's charts. For those that are new to the channel, my name is Ashley Brianna Eve. Welcome. I always brag that you guys are the best community ever. So make yourself at home if you are new here. I do branding and marketing. That is my job. That is my business, from everyone just starting out as an entrepreneur, as a personal brand, all the way up to public figures. And it's something I'm really passionate about. But not just building personal brands, because I genuinely believe good people do great things in this world with more money. And that has been something that's been a driving force for me to continue showing up and continuing to help build brands. But also, I bring BG5 into it. And those that come into my world are looking to build authentic brands that are true to who they are. Because we spend most of our life, as Ra Uru, the creator of the human design system, would have said, trying to fill up our openness and be what we are not. And let me tell you, you want a fast track to figuring out how you've been trying to figure out your openness and living through your openness and shore up your weaknesses your whole life. Start a business will bring out all your shadow patterns, or start a YouTube channel, because you will have people tell you every single day why you suck, why you're doing it wrong, and why you should be different than you are. And this is the whole point of human design, is be who you are. Stop trying to be what you are not. You do not have to shore up your weaknesses. You want to leverage your strengths and learn through the openness, but you do not have to be anyone other than who you are. And if there's nothing else that you learn from this channel, whether you are a personal brand or you're here for the pop culture, I hope you take that away. I hope you watch this channel and you see me mess up and you see me say the wrong thing and you see me show up just as who I am, take it or leave it. And it gives you maybe that little bit of permission slip to say, if she can do it, I can do it too. So we're going to dive into this today through the lens of human design. And I'm asking the question, does his open ego, so it's this little white triangle here, it would be bright red, If it's defined, which would be a consistent strength, does it explain how Blake was able to take advantage of Justin Baldoni? So the first thing we want to look at is what you amplify. What is the openness? Now, I'm leaving links in the show notes for this on how you can get your body graph from the Jovian Archive website. I'm also going to leave a link on how you can learn more about your Gene Keys hologenetic profile. They're linked. Richard Rudd, who created Gene Keys, he ran the UK arm of the International Human Design School, and he was like the right-hand man of Ra Uru Hu. So if you enjoy one, you're typically going to enjoy the other. Enjoy those links. And if you are looking to book your own call to understand yourself on a deeper level, I do offer foundation calls in these as well. So when we're looking at anything that's white, so it looks like there's a lot of white on his what's called body graph, right? And there's this box, red box, which is his sacral, this brown triangle, which is the splenic center. And at the bottom there is the brown box, which is the root center. Those are defined. Anything that's colored in is what's consistent within you. Anything that's white is where we gain wisdom. Sometimes not because we really want it. Learn things the hard way. Justin Baldoni is a 3-5 profile. The third line is trial and error. It's the school of hard knocks. And, sometimes you don't want to keep learning that way. But unfortunately or fortunately, I actually love the third line. I have a lot of clients that are third lines. I'm a 6 line, which is a role model, first 30 years marked by trial and error. So I feel those that have a 3 or a 6 profile line. I believe, fortunately, we often see it as unfortunately, but fortunately, he learned things the hard way. And because of that, he shares his wisdom with others through that ego. And we're going to break down what that wisdom is. Now, when we're looking at anything that is white in your body graph, it is what you amplify. If someone else is colored in where you are white on your body graph, you amplify their energy there. Ra Uru Hu said it was up to 200%. So if someone has a defined solar plexus, this white triangle on the right side of his body graph, and yours is white, his is completely open there. There's no hanging gates. You're amplifying someone's emotions at 200%. So I find I'm an open solar plexus as well. I'm usually the happiest one in the room or the, most emotional one in the room. You put me at a funeral, I am crying harder than anyone else. You put me at a happy event and I am like the happiest one in the room. We really do bring in others' emotions and experience them on a very deep level. Now, Ra Uru Hu said that we have that amplification, and his theory was so that we know it's not ours. So that we can discern that, okay, that's not my energy. But unfortunately, what ends up happening is we start to identify with it and we make it our own. So this is what you receive from others. Anything that's defined is going to be your strengths and your traits, but when they're white, it's going to be inconsistent or not reliable in the way you operate. So that might be, for his undefined G center here, this diamond in the middle, maybe based on who he's around growing up, he took on their identity and almost felt like he lost himself in others' identities. So the potential that it's inconsistent because when you're with someone that has that defined center, you take on their identity. For example, it's white diamond. It will be yellow on yours if it's defined. In this picture up here, it's yellow. You take it on and you go, well, why am I like this with Sally and I'm like that with Jack? Who am I under all of it? And we start to get distracted through it. Where it is white is where it's our areas of our shadows and where your mind can throw you off track. And it might also feel like you're lacking there. It might feel like that is a weakness. That is something I need to be better at. And if you ask me, we are our own worst enemies when it comes to pointing out our weaknesses and what we need to be better at. We are worse to ourselves often, and our self-talk to ourselves is worse than usually, although the internet is an interesting place, usually worse than anyone else would say to us. So we feel like we're lacking there. And it can lead, because we feel like we're lacking, plus we're amplifying other people's energy there, it can lead to distortion, overreacting, misunderstanding, and what we call not self or shadow behaviors that we're going to break down for the ego today. However, when you're operating correctly, chances are what you amplify becomes great wisdom to be shared with others. So this experience, for example, that Justin had with Blake, I really think that he worked through that shadow that he had through the undefined, or his open ego. Sorry, it's open on his. And now it's wisdom that he's sharing with others. And he started with Rainn Wilson's podcast. Now we're going to break down the willpower first. So this is Justin's chart on the left and Blake's chart on the right. In business, so one of my favorite pieces of the human design system is BG5, which is the business application of the human design system. And I'm not sure if I really am a huge fan of calling it the business application because it makes it feel as though it's only for business owners. We might reframe that as the career or strength driven maybe approach to human design, because human design itself is a spiritual awakening tool. When we're looking at BG5, it's very practical things you can take and apply to your life, to your relationships, to your business, your career today. I work with a lot of people that aren't necessarily entrepreneurs, but they're looking to leverage this within their career and within their relationships as well. Now, so I just want to clarify, because you're going to see it said as willpower here, and that is the BG5 application. And I wanted to provide you straight from the horse's mouth. This is straight from my BG5 courses, what they say. What Ra had said with the willpower distortion is there's a huge distortion with humans that think they are not worthy. Always trying to prove yourself, always trying to shore up your weaknesses, always trying to essentially be what you are not. The assumption is you are less than what you are. And that's why I started this with Justin's own words, because I get some pushback sometimes when I talk about the potential shadows within Justin's chart. And I get you. We are all team Justin here. I get you. And it's not a slight. We all have shadows. We all have weaknesses. And so I'd almost ask you to sit in the discomfort. If you get this like reaction, right? You go, oof, she's pointing that out. It's mean, or that's rude, or she's putting him down. Sit with that discomfort, because that might be a mirror of where you judge yourself for your shadows, where you judge yourself for your weaknesses, where you might see yourself in that shadow and you go, well, she's just being a bitch. Like, that's rude, or she's being mean to him. But it's because it's kind of pushing on a soft spot within ourselves. And it might simply be that we see these shadows as negative, and therefore we are less than, because we're not perfect. And the world tells us we should be perfect. And the world tells us everyone should love us. And the world tells us we have to turn ourselves inside out to get approval from every single person around us. And so when we hear this sometimes, especially for a public figure like Justin, who we adore, let's be honest, we all adore him here, it can really trigger something within us. So just I encourage you, sit in the discomfort. If it comes up, I know it does for myself sometimes. I remember the first time I started diving into human design gene keys, I was like, I don't do that. Who are you to tell me I do that? You're an ass, right? Like, I so in the shadow back in the day, but it's true. But now I sit with it and I go, oof. All right, what is there for me to heal here? So it's not an attack on him. It's not an attack on you. We all have shadows. And we can start to sit with the discomfort of, where do I actually judge myself for my shadows? And think, and you can even ask, where did I first hear that? Where did I first hear that I wasn't worthy? Where did I first hear I wasn't enough, if it's an undefined or open ego? Where did I first hear that I had to be something I wasn't to be liked or have a seat at the table or to be accepted? And then you also start to pull yourself out of that and look at, oh, that wasn't something inherently I decided about myself. It was something someone told me. It was something I took on through my openness, but it was never mine to hold. And then you can, it's feels like, yeah, you just release it and move on. But you start to bring the unconscious conscious, and that's when you can finally change your life. There's this always thinking there. So coming back to the willpower. So again, it's going to be on Blake, this red triangle, and on Justin, this white, completely white triangle. When it's white, so for Justin, there's always thinking there's something much better to be, somewhere further to go. People end up driving and sacrificing themselves psychologically and socially in their lives in the quest to redeem themselves. Their mind runs their life by tapping into their deepest needs and fears, what you do not have, what you long for, what you are afraid of not having. And again, this is all what Justin had talked about in the clip I played at the start. There is enormous poverty, Ross said, so many people feeling like they don't deserve more. And he doesn't necessarily mean poverty in terms of wealth. It's like that inner poverty. I don't deserve. I'm living in what's often called lack. If willpower is defined, it's natural for you to feel like you have something to prove. If it's undefined, it's not natural for you to feel like you have something to prove. You have nothing to prove, and it's a gift. His is a gift. You do not have to carry the burden. It's not something to beat yourself up over because you are quote unquote lacking it or you feel as though you are lacking it. It's also one of the 4 motors. So we have emotional intelligence, which is going to be your solar plexus. On both of them, it's white. It's that triangle on the right-hand side near the bottom. We have the stamina and drive. That's what it's called in business. It's the root center in human design. So if you know human design, you might be more aware of that. It's the brown box on the bottom of Justin's, and on Blake's, it's the white box at the bottom. We have energy resource, which is the BG5 way of saying it. And human design, the way of saying that would be your sacral. So they both have it. It's that red box in the middle. And then we have willpower, which is your ego or your heart, which is white on Justin and red on Blake. These are motors. Now, if we want to go really woo, the solar plexus is undergoing mutation right now into an awareness center, but it is still a motor. It'll be an awareness center after 2027. These provide a source of energy, action, and movement. They create a powerful pressure for action and move us forward through, well, willpower and what we're going to be talking about today, emotional power, generative power, or adrenalized power. Now, let's break down the 2 different approaches, both the shadow or unhealthy state as well as the natural healthy state. I'm not going to dive into Blake's too much. I'll make a couple points, but I go really deep into hers on the other video. So make sure you watch it. Now, when we're looking at Justin's, one thing we can keep in mind right off the bat is if it is red on yours, it's either an unhealthy state or a natural healthy state. If it's white, it's either a shadow where you overcompensate or it's wisdom where you realize you have nothing to prove. So with Justin's, this is where I really feel a lot of this wisdom he's gained has been through is the ego. And I also feel just from the little bit I've watched and learned about him that this center, the ego, was kind of that, like Achilles heel, if you will, which it is for most people. It is what holds most people back. And when we look at what's called the not self deck, is essentially what center, all these geometric shapes are centers, hold you back. It's number 1. So the fact his is completely open, there's no gates hanging off of it. And he was around someone that, look at hers. She has 2 channels and 2 gates hanging off. It doesn't get really more activated than that. Really hard to be. It really has the potential to be a recipe for issues. And especially with Blake Lively being in what I deem to be the shadow of her defined ego. So when we're looking at the shadow of this open ego, it's always trying to prove yourself. No matter how successful you are, you're still trying to prove yourself. It never feels like enough. And if you add that to ADHD, I have ADHD, Justin has ADHD, and that rejection sensitivity that comes with ADHD, well, it's another layer because not only are you working against your energy, but you're working against quite literally your mind and your executive function and how your brain works. So you're always trying to prove yourself. You're constantly comparing yourself to others, making promises you can't keep, or making promises to also prove yourself, right? So he might have in the beginning, to prove himself, said, you know what, Blake, yeah, okay, fine, you can do wardrobe. Well, then if we look at Blake's chart, her unhealthy state is putting pressure on others to prove themselves and keep promises in the shadow and the unhealthy state, getting carried away and coming across as too forceful, exerting your will on others, and creating resistance when working with others. So you think about it, he admits, this is not me projecting. He said he was in the shadow. I just say it in a different way because of the information for BG5. So you have him in the shadow in many respects, which is not bad. We all operate from the shadow. And he even said in that clip, it's never 100% because it's not. Let's start holding ourselves to the reality that is never 100%. And that's another place where we can start really looking at the discomfort, because if we hold others to perfection, often it's because we hold ourselves to that and we're projecting that on others. If we judge ourselves for messing up, for making a mistake, for not being perfect, you are going to often project that on others. Others become the mirror. And then you start lashing out and trying to control others' behaviors because internally that's something you're struggling with. So Blake very clearly was being very forceful, exerting her will on others. And then if we look at Justin's own words, he was comparing himself to others. He was, it was enmeshed, he said, trying to prove himself in the projects he took on. There is overcompensating and overcommitting. So overcompensating, we could also hear in his audio. So a lot of people have said, the audio that was released of that voice note, he left Blake. A lot of people had said, oh, he's walking on eggshells because she's a narcissist. Likely. I am not negating that in the least. My background's in psychology. I know all about that. And we can also see that in different realms as well. Well, you're working with a narcissist, clearly. It seems as though it's safe to say there's something going on there. You also are working through the shadow of your open ego. So you're always trying to prove yourself. You're undervaluing yourself. You're feeling worthless or not worthy or not good enough. And now you have her exerting her will on you. You're trying to prove yourself. You're trying to get a seat at the table. It seems like, I finally have a seat at the table. Like Ryan sees me and Blake sees me. And then you get this voice note where it seems like he is overcompensating. He's very apologetic. And some people took that as inauthentic. I just take it as the shadow of his open ego, likely also walking on eggshells because he was worried of how she would react. And then the third layer is the fact he has ADHD and rejection sensitivity, which is a very real thing where there's like a deep fear of being rejected. So we also have undervaluing yourself with the shadow for Justin, always having to prove or improve yourself. And I always joke that feeling of always having to improve yourself is also, I always believe, that leads so many of us into psychology or spirituality often. Working really hard to show others how valuable you are and feeling you have to compete or be better than anyone else, or you're not worth it. You're not worth anything. And so we've heard him say how that was enmeshed with the roles he was picking and taking on. And then again, you get someone like Blake Lively, who very clearly has never been told no in her life, who has been able to steamroll people through the unhealthy state of her ego, exerting her will on others, meeting resistance when working with others because you're constantly exerting your will on them. You're constantly putting pressure on them. You have this pumped up ego with expectations. And now you have someone in the shadow of their open ego, which is undervaluing themselves. And this isn't making an excuse for anyone. It's just the reality of the energy. So when we're looking at Justin's, because again, it's completely white. When it's completely open, there's this extra struggle of worthiness. It really becomes like, what does it mean to be worthy? I don't know. Like I can't put my finger on it. I've never felt worthy. What is this word? How do you measure it? What's it all about? These are these questions, and like this pressure that you're constantly under can get totally overwhelmed by anyone who has willpower. So keep this in mind, can be totally overwhelmed by anyone who has willpower. And then you put him around someone in the shadow like Blake, who's never been told no. And she has it defined. So she has willpower. She's in the shadow of it. She's got two channels, the 51 and 25, the 26 to 44, and gates 21 and 40. And make sure to watch the video on her because her chart is all about being in control, competition, being first. And then you put her with Justin. And it can get totally overwhelmed by anyone who has that energy. Those with willpower defined can have a lot of power over you. Let's look at that again. Those with willpower defined can have a lot of power over you. So what happens when those with willpower defined have a lot of power over you? And they also have a lot of power over you in the industry as well. They let you know about the dragons that are in their corner. You let them know that this person lets you know about the people that will take them down if you're not on her side. The wisdom, however, right? I don't want anyone to ever fear the openness. That's not the point. The wisdom of this center is when it's completely open, when you come to a place of accepting you have nothing to prove and trusting your decision-making strategy. So for him, it's his sacral. You don't have to prove yourself. You are worthy as you are. You can gain great wisdom about the trustworthiness of one's world, the use of money and personal power on the material plane. Now, if we go a step deeper, we're going to look at Justin's life work and how that may have also played a role here. We didn't look at Blake Lively's gene keys, but we are going to look at Justin's, because I do think his life work also explains some of the stuff we've seen. So when we look at his life work, it's here, 41.3. It's at the top. This is called your hologenetic profile and gene keys. And his says, and again, I have the link in the show notes, you are someone that by design should always be ahead of their time. Deep inside, you have probably always had dreams of what you want to achieve in life, and you may have doubted whether you actually can. The trick for you is to follow the impulse behind those dreams without being attached to the form they take as they emerge into the world. So this was a shadow. He said it was all enmeshed with being enough, with proving himself. So he was attached to the outcome. He was attached to the form they would take in the world. And again, this isn't a slight. We all have shadows. If this is triggering and you're like, don't be mean to Justin, take a deep breath and sit with it. That it is uncomfortable sometimes to look at our shadows. Not sometimes, it always is. It's very uncomfortable. So just where does that kind of like get you in the gut, right? They may not end up looking anything like they did in your mind. So his dreams coming to life. One of your greatest gifts is to anticipate the unexpected, and this knack will keep you one step ahead of everyone else around you. Above all, you need to be aware of your mind, because it will tend to grasp hold of belief systems that prevent you from acting. Not literally acting, but acting on the right thing. You need to trust in the impulses that emerge within you and allow them to become actions. Yours is no life of idle fantasy. If you have a dream, it is up to you alone to either keep it a dream or allow it out into the world. Now, when we look at the shadow, so we have the shadow, the gift, and the city. And my friends, we all have the shadow. I remember I'm going to tell you a story. The first time I ever was working with clients on gene keys, it was really fascinating to me, to be honest. And I stopped working with it for a while because I'd work with clients and say, similar to the shadows, I offer a long-term coaching support container, if you will, or mentorship program called the shadows. And so we'd look at, say, I'd give them the book right here, give them their homework, right? And say, okay, so your life work is 41.3. So you're going to contemplate 41 and see how this shadow comes up in your life. And it was a wake-up call for me as well, because I'd send them home with that homework. And without fail, within 24 hours, they messaged me and they're like, okay, perfect. Yep. Ash, I'm in the city, so it's all good. The city here, emanation, the Ouroboros. Yeah, yep, all good. Perfect. Okay, what's next? And I was like, what are you talking about? You had less than 24 hours to go over this. What do you mean you're in the city? No, you are not in the city. And so we tend to, as humans, and it was very interesting for me, because we also put that pressure on ourselves to be perfect, to just work through it, to push, figure it out, make sense of it, and get over it, because it is very uncomfortable to be in the shadow. And hey, I do that too. We all do it. That's why we have mentors. That's why I have mentors. That's why I believe in coaches and spiritual mentors and such, because we're often blind to our own shadows. And so it really showed me at that point that when that happened, how uncomfortable we are sitting in it, and really looking at how does this show up and how is this a pattern in my life? So the shadows aren't bad, and it takes time. The gene keys are more of a contemplation. Human design is more of like practical application. Go out and apply it today. It's more of a contemplation and starting to witness the patterns and how they show up in your life. So the shadow's not bad. We all have it. And I would say it's unrealistic for anyone to expect that they're just going to be in the city like that and then stay there. That's usually, the spiritual leaders that have like this epiphany one day, lightning strikes essentially, and they just like download the consciousness of the universe. And they probably still have shadows anyway. Shadow of life work is fantasy. Fantasy is the continual pressure to create a better world, warped into an unhealthy need to satisfy inner desires. So this is the thing where you start to unravel this. And he had noticed that's where I was enmeshed. That's where it was all together. This was his breakthrough from It Ends With Us. So it's a unhealthy need to satisfy inner desire. So it's like, yeah, I want to make a better world, but because I want to be seen as good enough as well. I want to have a place at the table. It's the hunger for a better future, yet being stuck in cycles of hyperactivity and chronic fatigue. You do see this in those that have ADHD very much amplified as well, because you have like the hyperactivity of ADHD, and then you have a shadow 41 that also has hyperactivity tendencies. And part of the deconditioning process here is unwinding what is the ADHD and what is hyperactivity from being in the shadow of my life's work. And that in and of itself is quite an unwinding to go on. Fantasy represents the addiction to hope instead of the application and manifestation of one's dreams into reality. The mind can swing like a pendulum between visions of the future or rehearsing trauma in the past, thus distracting one from living in the present moment. Repressing this urge to evolve can lead to a dreamy demeanor addicted to an internal fantasy world created by the mind in the attempt to escape life. This is where you can also get quite literally addictions. Others become hyperactive, always a few steps ahead of themselves, experiencing life through an intense nervous energy that leads to physical and emotional burnout. So again, my background for those that are newer to the channel is in psychology. I was actually a counselor, believe it or not. You know, I've lived many lives in this life. I was a counselor originally, and I was adult diagnosed ADHD, which really pisses some people off when they watch my live streams, but I'm sorry, I'm not going to change who I am. But people will say, you know, you go on too many side quests and you don't stay on track. Yeah, it's my brain. So anyway, Justin Baldoni has talked about his ADHD. And again, when we're starting to unwind, is that restlessness, is that boredom, that hyperactivity, however it's expressed within him, is it actually the brain seeking maybe a dopamine hit? Or are you operating through the shadow? Are you starting to grip to the outcome, starting to get attached to the outcome? And because of that, you're trying to be a couple steps ahead of yourself. And so this is something with someone like Justin I'd be working on is, okay, we're feeling that restlessness come up. We're feeling that nervous energy come up. The burnout's starting to hit. Can absolutely be ADHD. Could it be that you're getting ahead of yourself? Overthinking, trying to figure things out to prove yourself through that undefined ego or that open ego, to be worthy. And yeah, from that place, you do burn out. His gift is fantasy. Oh, my apologies. I needed to update that. His gift is anticipation. When we're looking at the 41, it is anticipation. It's right there. The shadow's fantasy gift of anticipation. Anticipation is the ability to maintain a grounded presence in the body while simultaneously opening to new ideas. It's from the centered place where one becomes a conduit for new innovations to enter the world. And this is a gift of leadership through humble listening. It's the ability to receive information from life's experiences and discover the genius intelligence hidden inside each moment. Anticipation is the healthy use of restrained listening before acting and listening to yourself as well. Listening to what in human design we call your inner authority as well. That's also an important piece to keep in mind. It's the spark of creative genius that discovers exciting new ideas in the realm of communication. And that might actually take the role of art, music, film, etc. But it doesn't come, the exciting new ideas don't come from the mind, don't come from, if we go backwards, trying to be ahead of life, a few steps ahead of yourself, trying to force it from the ego of what do I need to do? Yes, of course, there's this pressure to create a better world, but also because I want to satisfy my inner desires. I want to be seen. I want to spot at the table. I want to prove I'm good enough. That's not where the new ideas come from. So working with someone like Justin in my offer, like the shadows, that becomes a core cornerstone of it. Of it's not that new ideas are bad. What was it born from? Was it born from listening to yourself? Was it born from stillness? Was it born from like an inner dream? Or was it born from trying to prove yourself, trying to be enough to be seen as worthy? And the city is emanation. Emanation is the recognition that all of life emerges from the unnameable, inconceivable, limitless light of creation. It's the revelation of the fundamental patterns connecting all through thought, experience, and sensations into a unified field of awareness. Emanation occurs as one returns to the emptiness before thought. So remember, I said that stillness, that place of stillness before the thought comes. It was born from within. It wasn't born from the external world, and you're trying to catch up. You're trying to prove yourself. You're trying to be something you're not. It was born from the stillness. And I want to read you Richard Rudd's own words. Oh, I have stickies everywhere. From the 64 Ways. He said, the great teachings in this gene key is about letting go of our plans. We can plan, and we must plan in small ways, such as what to eat the next day, or when and where we'll meet a friend or go on holiday. These are small plans. Then there's the big planning of fantasy. We fall in love, get married, and fall victim to a fantasy of the perfect life with the perfect person, and it doesn't turn out that way at all. In a year, it's all changed. They aren't who we thought they were, and instead it's difficult and painful. And so he uses the example of getting married, but you could also say it ends with us, in the relationship with Blake Lively also reflects this idea of the big planning. He said it's all enmeshed, wanting to be seen, and I couldn't completely separate the projects I took on from that. So we could say, there's this big planning of the next level of his career. He sees it ends with us, for example, as being seen, being respected on that level he wants to be seen and respected on. So he has this big plan. He falls in love with the idea. He falls in love with the movie. He plans it all out. He brings on the lead. So instead of getting married, brings on the lead of Blake Lively, and falls victim to a fantasy of the perfect life with the perfect person, perfect movie, perfect project, whatever you want to put there. And it doesn't turn out that way at all. In a year, it's all changed. And for him, couldn't be more true. They aren't who you thought they were. So Blake wasn't who he thought he was. And instead, it's difficult and painful. Oh, and apparently StreamYard gave me a thumbs up. I don't even know how to activate that. I'm not even going to lie. I don't even know how to turn it off. But whenever it happens, I just always think it's the universe giving me a thumbs up. I'm on the right track. He says, decline comes unexpectedly. So the Chinese I Ching call this hexagram decrease. As the shape of its character denotes an empty cauldron. He says, decline comes unexpectedly. It comes often to test us. It comes to lessen our attachments to this world. Like the 41st gene key, it's riddled throughout our lives. Along with this shadow can come deep disappointment, pain, sorrow, grief, resentment, depression, and all the sinking feelings that take us away from our joyousness. Our lives are often dominated by our unconscious fantasies, like the marriage perfect partner dream, the money dream, the power dream, right? That's where we're seeing it come up for Justin, the enlightenment dream. And that's something to be careful of as well on your spiritual journey, is that you're just going to reach this place of enlightenment. You're never going to be in the shadow, and you're just perfect. Richard Rudd continues, they all haunt our inner lives. One by one, they'll be crushed by life. And this is good news, which we'll see when we go deeper into this gene key. We're called upon to become naked, like that empty cauldron. Whenever we have a fantasy, it'll be wiped out. And so the idea behind this is that fantasy was meant to be wiped out to show him what was important. Richard continues, this is why plans can be dangerous. We can plan, but we must hold lightly to those plans because change is all around us. Death is a part of life, and it may intervene at any moment. The problem is really our minds. Our minds love to dream and hope. All these people dreaming of a better life with more money, doing the lottery, fantasizing about how it could be better if. The if is the killer, the fuel of our fantasies. Wherever we have an if, there we'll suffer. Over the course of our life, one by one, our ifs will fall away. Whether we struggle to let go graciously, the result is the same. We all leave as we came, empty. The emptiness can be filled, but not with any achievement or form of the world. It can become filled with love, connection, joy. That's surely the key. What we're really seeking isn't a result, but a surrender into the stream, a sense of deep trust and fulfillment through being a part of the whole. Let's consider our ifs, our fantasies about our future. Each one is destined to decline and fade into nothing. The best is to let them go before they naturally wither. We must prune back our inner life so that the plans we have are held much more lightly. They're simply markers, wayshowers that lead us onwards along our path. If they don't happen the way we dream them, that's okay. They're the impulse of our spirit. They're the little lights we throw ahead to help us see the path. I recommend we do an inventory of our fantasies and see how we're setting ourselves up for disappointment. Even if we attain our fantasy, we won't be fulfilled because another will simply spring up in its place. This gene key is all about seeing through the tricks our mind play with us. The fantasies are in no way bad. In fact, we can use them to our advantage. It's just a matter of seeing through the game. I don't know about for you guys, but that one 41 makes me so emotional because it's not about not planning. It's not about not having goals. It's hold them lightly because you genuinely never know where life is going to bring you. But when you release, when you surrender and you come back to the present moment, that's where you get surprised. But if you are so attached to something being the way it needs to be, you miss the opportunities that are actually how they were always meant to be in the first place. So anyway, I will leave you guys with that. I think it's just a beautiful way to wrap this up. I do believe these are two places, the ego and life work 41, that really caught Justin up in some patterns that he very clearly, through his own words, was able to work through the wisdom he gained from, unfortunately, being in Blake's world. And I hate to say it, but I'm sure she's taught him a lot of lessons. And I wish to say, and I wish it was true, that he had the opportunity to bring some lessons to her, but I genuinely do not think she is open to any lessons. Just my suspicions. Anyway, my friends, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please share with someone that maybe they'd never heard of Gene Keys or human design, and you know that they're feeling like there's something more. They're feeling like there's patterns they're looking to shift, or even I just find at midlife for all of us, we're wondering who we are. Who am I? And is this all there is to life? This video might help them shift something, even if they're not pop culture lovers. And with that, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.